Good evening and welcome. A new name, a new year, a new series. Here we are, Super 2 for 2021. Got some new names in here. Got a familiar name though joining me in the commentary box with some others a little bit busy tonight, but Steve DeVries jumping in and giving us a hand. Welcome along, Steve.
Glad to be back on board for Super 2. And as you said, new year, new name, new series, and some new drivers that we picked up from last year and spent a number of their days churning out laps in the back end of Super 2 2020 and Super 2 Summer Series as well. And good to see a nice healthy field for the opening round of what's probably the shortest series in terms of race weekends in the community history, sharing the same calendar as supercars, but just the 10 rounds this year, 20 races, going to be a very 30 races, 3 races a night, going to be a very interesting 2021 campaign for these guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. Not too much variety, as you said there, with the tracks. There only being 10 rounds on the calendar for Supercars and for Super 2 this season. Obviously, both of them running in parallel with each other, with the Super 2 coming before the main Supercars next week, which everyone's all excited for. But these guys, instead of the main series, these guys run 3 races instead of 2. A little bit longer in some respects than some of the races from the summer series, but should still be very interesting, Stephen. With tonight, it's line ball on strategy with the soft tyre. At least in my running, I did a run and it failed on the second last or last laps when I tried it. So some drivers might want to gamble on the softs, but others might just play it safe and put the hard tyres on.
Yeah, spot on there, Lewis. The same sort of situation came up in the summer series with the difference between the hard tyre and the soft tyre and whether you would make it on 2 stops or 1 stop, having to qualify on the correct compound, start on that compound as well. And again, a little bit of a line ball decision as to what avenue you take. Do you want to try and see if you can take the risk and make the soft tyres last a full stint and drive, say, at that 90%? Rather than the full 100% and then have to try and stop in the middle? Or do you take the gamble? Do you go the hard tyres and see how you go trying to make them last? You know, this different variety of strategy will come up again and again, and there's a number of circuits on the calendar that will test people's ability to, you know, do a long tyre run and test the tyre longevity over the course of a whole race and work out what the preferred compound is. And being this is a high deg circuit, same as last year, I get the impression that the hard tyre might be a worthy choice, but you've got to be able to make it work.
Yeah, there is a point on the hard tyre where the grip falls away a little bit. You can still lap probably within about 1.5 seconds all throughout the entire length of the race on the hard tyre, but you do get to a certain point, probably about 5 or 6 laps in, where the rear tyres in particular coming out of corners just completely fall away. So that's something that these drivers are going to have to deal with. The soft tyre, on the other hand, got fairly good grip for quite a while, probably out until about the 10th lap. But from then on in, you are struggling, and of course it will fail with probably a lap to go. Should you gamble on it? So that's something that if we do see drivers do gamble on that soft tyre, they're gonna have to really baby and really be really gentle, particularly on the rear tyre. The rear left around here does take a bit of a pounding here. Another new addition for this season, as opposed to last season's Super 2 and the Summer Series, is that we have lock setups this time around. So drivers aren't able to invest a lot of time into developing a hyperdock. It's all about really pretty much matching up the steering settings that you prefer with the steering lock and rotation. Same with the brake power settings, finding what's comfortable there. And then outside of that, it's all about selecting the right gear ratio, which there's only 3 different ones that they're going to be running this season, so it's not too difficult a choice. And then it's all down to driving. So it's going to be very interesting to see how a number of these drivers do fare with that, because we did see drivers last season or in the summer series put in a heap of laps and were able to stretch away. While I think we might see in this series, Steve, with that being locked, drivers may put in a heap of laps, but they're not going to find that same, I guess, pace advantage now that they can't really develop the car to the way they want.
No, you're spot on there. And the only other thing you left out on that one as well is when they're on circuit, they are allowed to adjust the front and rear anti-roll bars just to tune the car a little bit to their liking. They can still also tune the car on the run as the fuel load burns off, as the tyre wear goes up and they don't have much rubber left as well. They can tune the car to suit a little bit, but then of course when they go back to the lane, as they tend to do during practice and put on a new set of tyres and so on and so forth, they lose all those settings. They go back to the stock. So they need to then reset those all over again.
Yeah, so a bit to manage there, and it's actually quite nice that there's in-game anti-roll bar changes that are able to be made as qualifying now getting underway, and Brian Walsh in the number 56 Rabble Club entry, the Richie Stanaway car, is going to be the first driver out onto the circuit. And man behind him, at least out on the circuit anyway, Matt Cecil was one of those guys in that last 6-minute practice session to set a really decent time there. So he's going to be one of those guys, I reckon, Steve, that's probably going to be vying for the title with a lot of the faster runners from last season and the summer series moving up. He's going to be one of those guys definitely in that top 5 region battling for podiums and wins, I think.
Yeah, he certainly will. Just got a couple of messages that just popped through from a few drivers. One of the little gremlins that we had in practice this week was a couple of the cameras being in offset positions. Now, we thought we'd actually nailed that, but a few drivers have just said as the session ticked over to qualifying, that it went back to what it actually was earlier in the week. So it's going to be interested to see how that pans out. It mainly affected the Nissan runners and the Ford runners, I think, if memory serves me correctly. So a few drivers might just be struggling with the laps in qualifying being slightly off centre to where they would be relative to the steering wheel on this 10-minute session.
Yeah, it seems to be an odd problem with AMS because it's something that's happened to me even in other series that I've ran, and the only real way to remedy it is to almost restart the game or to whack a different camera file in. But anyway, qualifying now underway. Drivers on their timed laps, and Walsh quickly getting caught by Matt Cecil. We'll try and jump over to him here, see how he's going on circuit. So the fastest overall time in all the practice sessions throughout the week is a 1:18.9. I don't think we're going to see that tonight. And a 19.0 from Daniel Cox as well. So that if the driver can manage to do that on the hard tyre, which we expect most runners to be on, that'll be a fair lap. But I don't think we're going to see too many drivers taking that risk. As Cecil going through turn 8, Brian Walsh in front of him, just clipping the wall there as they approach the hairpin. And Cecil is going to get balked just a little bit. Both these guys are on flying laps, so Brian Walsh doesn't have to get out of the way. And in the wall again there, and that certainly would have compromised Cecil a little bit. But at least this season though, Stephen, unlimited laps, but 10 minutes for these guys to sort it out instead of the old 3-lap dash, or the 1-lap dash that these Super 2 drivers are used to from previous seasons.
Yeah, close to the 3-lap dash. It was an out lap, a flying lap, and an in lap. That's your 3-lap dash. And you're right, they've got a little bit more time. They can come in, they can throw a set of tyres at it, go out, do 2 or 3 laps, come back in, and go again. Some drivers will probably just break it down, I'd imagine, into maybe 2 runs. So go out, do maybe a 2-lap run, come back in, and then try and get one in with another run in with, a couple of minutes left on the clock. At a minute 20 a lap, it's not inconceivable that they'll get, 3 or 4 decent fast flying laps in. It's just all about finding your space on track. There's quite a few drivers just running nose to tail at the minute. You've got people like Steve Warwick, Cheese is in there, I think Turmo in there as well, and the 23 red racing car, Dimmy in there as well. They're all sort of following each other, so haven't really got eons of space to work with, but they're trying to catch a bit of a slipstream off of them, of each other at various points in the circuit.
Yeah, man has found a little bit of space on this lap. It's Matt Cecil, who did get pipped by Darren Kemp there, but he's going faster again here on his second lap is Cecil. And he did get balked on his last lap in the final sector as well, so he should find more time here, and he's going to go almost deep into the 19s here. He's just squeezed in. It's a fairly good lap time there, 19.9. But we'll see if he's going to start on the soft or hard tyre. He wasn't a runner last season that had a lot of trouble getting his tyres to last, so maybe he's going to try race a little bit more on the hard tyre, or perhaps he's going to take a chance on just getting out in clear air and racing on the soft. But yeah, you did mention Dimmy. He's doing a really good job at the moment. P4 now. He's just been pipped by Lockie Lock there, but that's the highest he's ever been in any of our series, so it's good to see Dimmy up there in P4.
Yeah, he's right up there. Lockie Lock is, I think, another one of those guys that's benefited from the fixed setups coming into play. And he was right up there with the fixed setups in play earlier this week when we had our first round of the Mini Challenge Cup. And that really started to drag the field, drag the top end of the field back to the midfield. It started dragging the bottom guys up into the midfield as well, because everybody was sort of on a level playing field. It's had that effect in the Super 2 from the early running we've seen across the week so far. Everybody's just been able to, the spread is not as large as what it was. I mean, for people's best laps, the best lap we've seen is an 18.9 from Peter Thrower across the week, but most guys comfortably in the 19s and 20s, and even some guys in the low 21s. So the field spread definitely not as large as what it has been in previous years.
It's going to be very, very tight, I reckon, from first place pretty much all the way down. You could almost go all the way down to, say, P12 to P15 even. It's going to be very, very close, and that midfield in particular, say position 6 through to 12, it's going to be very, very tight between those guys, and it's going to be all about, well, in any race it's all about consistency, but particularly in these kinds of sort of second tier series, it always is about the consistency. It's never really about the pace. You can be a second a lap slower than someone, but if you don't throw it off the road, you'll find yourself beating guys that are a bit faster than you. So that's going to be an interesting thing to look out for. I reckon we're going to see a number of different winners and podium getters in this series. Now, we've got Turmo, who, of course, will be one of the men to beat this season. He goes P2 now. Now, 4/10 off Matt Cecil's ultimate pace, but still solid time from Turmo. And he's one of those guys that is nice and consistent when he's not getting run into.
Well, Cracker's popped up and just did himself a PB position 10. Taipan same position 11. Now, Cracker actually has asked me to start at the back of the grid, regardless of where he qualifies tonight. He's had very limited practice. But I'll tell you what, 10th place at the moment, nothing to be frowned upon, and is a 22.5. But I think we're yet to see the ultimate pace of a number of these guys. One person I'm looking for in particular is Peter Thrower, and he's yet to set a time. He's actually still on an out lap. He's had a couple of bites at the cherry. He hasn't actually put anything on paper just yet.
Yeah, I wonder if he's picked up a couple track cuts at the first chicane there, and he's probably had a little bit of traffic as well to boot. So a combination of those two things has probably led to that, as Lockie Lock improves in P4 there. But Thrower now coming out of the final corner. He has got a time next to his name. Will it count to at least get him on the board? It doesn't. So he must have picked up a track cut there, probably at the first chicane.
Yeah, that's a bit tidier through the chicane there as well that time. So I'd imagine we'll probably get a sector split just between turns 5 and 6. And that will be the giveaway if how he's tracking. So that's coming up just after this left-hander here. We'll get sector time. And it's a 23.4, so 7/10 off the ultimate best pace at the minute, but he's got to get something on the board. Something's better than nothing.
Yeah, if he's got enough fuel to do another lap, it's almost worth on this lap just getting something in the bank and then having a little bit more of a dip on the second lap, because he's not going to get another one. Well, he'll have this lap that he finishes and he'll be able to start the next one, but the next one will be his final lap with a minute left in the session. He's got Turma behind him, lights ablaze, and he's actually a good yardstick behind him. Turma hasn't really gained all that much on this lap, so it's not a terrible lap up until that point from Thrower, just outbraking himself a little bit and managing to avoid the fence there. But Yeah, he'll be looking to find a little bit more definitely on this second lap as Termo enters the pits in the background there. Almost have to say that Thrower would definitely be on the hard tyre with that. But he goes P10, so not terrible. But certainly having more of a dip there at the first chicane.
Yeah, P10, nothing to be frowned upon. It's a matter of whether or not he presses on after that initial lap. And he's just been demoted to 11th, so I think that's his teammate. That's actually Braxton Stancliffe that just went ahead of him. So those two Kiwis sharing the Red Bull Holdens in this series.
He's up 4
And
tenths here.
yeah, nice improvement. So that's tracking at this stage to be sort of top 5 if he can continue to press on with it. So wondering whether or not he actually was on the hard tyre or not. The second split will be the giveaway down here just before he gets the hairpin, a little rub of the wall through turn 8. The deficit to first place comes up just after this little part of the course here. There it is. 4/10 of a second up on his own PB, but he's a second away from
And he's wide
the front
again.
row.
But I think he carried more speed this time. So yeah, turn 8, he hit the wall on the way in and out. But he's certainly a lot more aggressive on this lap. I think he will find a little bit more time on his personal best in the final sector here. As, someone's jumped in and out and given us a little bit of lag there. But to the line for Thrower, and he does improve by 4/10. So that first sector he held all the way through, but only able to really improve by that one position over his teammate. Braxton Stancliffe, and we've had right at the end there Darren Kemp jump up into P2. So again, this is the highest he's ever been, and
Termo jumped up as well, didn't he? Look, he jumped up all the way up to third place, so
yeah.
that was a bit unsighted as well, ahead of Lockie Lock. So that's an interesting sort of top half a dozen. Look at that: Matt Cecil, Darren Kemp, Termo, Lockie Lock, Justin Cecil, and Dimmy.
Yeah, so very jumbled up. Top, you can almost say top 10 almost. Cecil, I wasn't there for the final race night, but I believe he got a pole position in that one. Darren Kemp, I don't believe has been on the front row before, or if he has, it's only been once or twice. And then we have Termo in third, Lockie Lock, as you say, in fourth again. A number of these drivers as high as we've ever seen them. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see. And of course, taking into account that Cracker, as you said, he's going to be starting from the back regardless. But that's not a bad effort from him. It's the first time he's really given these cars a run in anger for a long time, which is good to see. But he's not confident enough to start in the mid-pack. So would expect guys like Thrower in the race to work his way forward. Same with the likes of Cheese and Taipan, who had both Thrower and Taipan had really good runs here in the summer series. So unlike them to be a little bit further down. Same with Steve Warwick. So I reckon we're going to see some really, really good racing with a number of guys out of position and some guys a little bit higher than what we'd normally expect.
And Lockie Lock just we actually just sort of missed it in that regard, but the gap to Termo was 0.001 between the men in third and fourth place.
And all that would be is almost like the difference, just a slight little bit of opposite lock or waiting to get on the throttle for the smallest amount with that time there. So nothing between them, not even a cigarette paper.
Actually, be keen to have a look and see where they were. I mean, I guess sector-wise, we'll go back and have a bit of a look at that a bit later on and just see how it all shakes out. But yeah, I mean, you can't get a closer margin, and in the way the timing works with AMS, and it goes down to 3 digits past the decimal point. You can get a bit closer in real life, but we're not going to that extreme.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not going to go into too much detail there, but it's going to be an interesting first race here. First of 3, of course. Might as well bring up the track map while we're here in the warm-up session for these guys. So there we are, Adelaide Street Circuit. And 3.2 kilometres, 14 turns. Forgot to edit the 2 races to 3 there, but that's all good. We've got 3 races tonight. At 16 laps. It's going to be very, very tight for the soft tyres. Do have to add a fair amount of fuel, but fuel won't be the deciding factor in these races. The qualifying lap record held by Lime Mitch, as well as the race lap record. Of course, he was on soft tyres when he did that. And I don't think that, well, the qualifying record certainly wasn't quite threatened, and the race record I don't think they're going to get anywhere near. But one thing to take into account around this track, Steve, is that the track limits in the race are a lot more lenient than what they are in qualifying and practice. So that first chicane in particular, you will see drivers taking a lot more of the curb, particularly the second part of the curb at what you could call turn two. You can take a lot more of that, and the game doesn't penalise you for it. So that's why you will see at this Adelaide circuit at AMS, where you'll see faster times in the race generally than what you do in qualifying sometimes.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and that's because as people get into the rhythm, they, the times just generally start to come down. So we'll be interesting to see who can actually, continually lower their lap times before the tyre gets to a state where it actually can no longer maintain that consistent evolution of pace. The parts of the circuit with the track limits to be most concerned about, as you pointed out, the centre chicane is the most obvious one. There can be a couple of little unknown ones. We have seen them through Sector 3, the continuing series of left-handers just coming into the parkland section of the circuit after the hairpin. There's been one or two occasions where that's struck a bit of trouble. And the big one will be seeing how the drivers get themselves sorted for turn 8. Now, history gone by, there's always been the rule in place of whoever's been ahead at a certain point in time has the right of way, but for the moment, it's been put on ice, and the drivers have just been told, you guys know it's expected, go and sort it out.
Yeah. So hopefully we don't see too many shenanigans into turn 8. That is going to be an interesting one, particularly on the first lap where you do have guys sort of getting poor runs off turn 7 and guys out of position, and people may try and go side by side through turn 8. You have seen people try it in real life, and pretty much every time, if someone doesn't back out, there's both cars generally in the fence. So hopefully we don't see that this evening. But going back to the track cuts, turn 11 is one where you can pick up a track cut on the entry, because the way the corner is, it's very inviting to take more and more curb, because that, for whatever reason, the curb there on the inside does invite you to just take more and more of it, and you want to carry more speed through it. And it is easy to pick one up there. I picked one up or a couple up in GT3 going through that corner. So that's to look out for with the track cut. So those following on live races, if you see no sector time next to the third sector line, that'll be why they've cut turn 11. But for me, the big portion, or the most important portion of this track really is the run through the centre chicane all the way through to turn 6. And you can say turn 7 as well. If you get that right, there's a lot of lap time there. Like the turn 9 is fairly simple. You can survive there and give up a tenth or two. And same through the whole back section of the circuit. But there's a lot of time to be had for these guys through turns 4, 5, 6, as well as 1 and 2, Steve.
Yes, absolutely. You can make time hand over fist if you just get those little 1%ers right at those parts of the circuit. So, just getting your wheel spin right, minimizing the amount of wheel spin off of some of these corners, just keeping the flow up. There's just those little small things that you can just do right, or just do 1% or 2% better than somebody else, and you're going to net yourself an awful amount of time gained.
Yeah, in particular, the braking for turn 4. It starts with the run, though, through that first chicane. In the race, it's a lot easier than what it is in practice, as I said before. But then you're going a little bit faster then into turn number 4. So it's very easy to outbrake yourself and hit the tyre bundle that does stick out on the exit of turn 4. So you've got to get the braking right for there. You've got to get it turned in. You don't really want to lock a brake there. You've got to take a bit of curb, but you don't want to take too much. And then you want to get on the throttle as early as possible for that short shoot to 5. And again, don't want to really outbrake yourself. You want to take a little bit of curb sometimes. And then, yeah, it's all about that rhythm through there. And you can find yourself, when you're not quite with it, you might think you're driving okay, but you're a little bit ways off where you'd expect yourself to be. And then, you find yourself in a rhythm, and you can find yourself, a second or two up from where you were before, just because you're hitting the points that may only be a meter or two, or half a meter or two away from where you're just driving a few laps earlier. So there's not much between. Well, there's a lot in terms of lap time, between a good and bad lap, but in terms of the positioning of the car, there's minimal placing in those areas. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially with drivers, probably a lot of them on the harder tyre as well, which is going to make it more tricky for these guys.
Yeah, you're not wrong. The few guys that probably haven't had a lot of time to practice on the harder tyre are going to have a little bit of a hard time, and pardon the pun, coming to grips with what they need to do in order to make that harder tyre survive and make that harder tyre work for them in the correct fashion. The soft tyre has been the weapon of choice for most of the running that we've done in supercars and Super 2 competition over the years. So it sort of is almost like the go-to tyre. A lot of drivers have sort of got this thing in their heads that the hard tyre often is rubbish, but it to a degree, I guess it still is a bit of rubbish. But it's more about how you utilize. If you're a driver that's able to, keep that flow up and sort of drive around a problem, same sort of thing that you go with the drivers when they talk about driving around a car's limitations. In this case, the car's limitations being the fixed setup and just basically dealing with the best thing that you've got given to you. You're going to go pretty well, and the hard tyre, I guess, is an extension of that into one degree or another.
Yeah, they've got to drive around a lack of grip that, normally when we do run in supercars, everyone just runs soft tyre. It's just at any opportunity, people just run the soft tyre because they don't like the harder tyre. It is quite a bit slower. Um, Depends on who you ask. For some people, it's 2 to 3 seconds a lap, and other people, it's maybe a second or a second and a half. But there's not too many people that say it's a good tyre to really enjoy racing on, especially in a supercar, which are fairly grip limited anyway, with the braking not being ideal. But it is something that, especially for these guys, it's good to learn driving, and well, not necessarily driving, but in particular racing cars that don't have the most ideal grip that you prefer. If you can learn to drive something that doesn't have, the good go fast tyres on them, you should be able to step up into other series and drive other cars that do have that more grip and certainly feel a lot more comfortable, especially around other cars. So it may be difficult for these guys in the early portion of the season, I'd imagine, but I think, you know, a few rounds in, and once they've done a few races under their belt with the hard tyre, I reckon these guys probably say it's not as bad as what they thought at the start of the season. Alright, so just waiting on a few things to fall in place here. Number of drivers just having some issues coming in and out here. So just running a little bit behind schedule as well due to the long drivers briefing. So a number of drivers now, just trying to sort these issues out here. So yeah, still just under 2 minutes left in the warm. I'm not sure if this will get restarted again, but yeah, still a number of drivers just trying to sort out some camera issues with the mod. As Braxton Stancliffe there, just a little bit too adventurous through turn 8 there, throwing it into the fence. I don't expect to see a number of runners doing that in the 3 races coming up. And that time there, going my live race, is actually his personal best time throughout. But then again, it's actually reset all his times, which is a bit odd there. And he does improve despite that graze with the wall. So yeah, just waiting for hopefully all these issues to hopefully be sorted. And Cracker being one of the few drivers out there that's about to practice start, something I haven't seen anyone else do just yet. And he's taking the adventurers line through the first chicane there. Alright, so session just about to come to close, but yeah, still just waiting to see what will happen, if it will get reset again or not. So yeah, just waiting here at the moment. I do apologise for this bit of dead air here. But just AMS doing AMS things, it seems, at the moment. Alright, looks like we're going to have the server be reset here. So we'll just take a bit of a break, and hopefully we'll be back up and running fairly quickly.